All right, g'day guys. This week I thought I'd take you on a little water shoot. I've just been across the road and beach breaks are pumping this morning at sunrise. So I've come back. I'm going to set up my housing for wide angle because it's offshore winds and it's pretty hollow at the moment. So I thought I might get some round empty wave shots, and there's a few surfers out there, so might get some action shots as well. So I've chosen to go with using a 8 to 15 mm lens. And before we load our camera into the housing, we've got to decide what mode we're going to shoot in. So there is a choice of manual, of course, aperture priority, and shutter speed priority. This time I'm going to go in manual mode, but with a little bit of difference. I'm going to leave the ISO in set to auto. So I can choose my manual settings, and in this case I am going to choose 1/1600th of a second, and I'm going to use an aperture of f8. It's pretty bright out there, the sun's still shining. It's around about 8:30 in the morning, so the sun's only going to get brighter. So I know that with a shutter speed even as high as 1/1600th a second and a mid-range aperture of f8, in automatic ISO, the ISO is probably not going to jump too high. It's probably going to be somewhere between 250 and 400 ISO. Could even be a little bit lower if it's brighter than what I anticipate. So that means that I know it's not going to go into a crazy ISO like ISO 2000, which really starts to introduce grain. I don't really like to go over 800 ISO, especially if it's sunny. There's no reason to be in that realm. So keep it under 400 on a sunny day and you'll get nice clean pictures without grain. Now the reason why I don't go full manual in a housing is because in a beach break situation especially, I'm going from a right-hander to a left-hander to perhaps under the water. So changing manual settings to get exposure correct for each of those angles, it's easy enough, but it's not easy when you're swimming around amongst the breakers. You can come up underneath a wave and immediately to your left there might be a beautiful barreling wave, so you're going to have to shoot that way. And if you've got the manual settings set up for shooting the right, or for shooting a previous shot underwater, well, then it's not going to expose correctly. So this is where this manual setting is very handy. You've got the aperture that you want, you've got the high enough shutter speed to freeze the action, 1/1600th of a second in this case, f8, which is a beautiful crisp aperture for most lenses to get their optimal performance, and also give you a really good focus from foreground to background. And so, but then the ISO jumps in to either increase if it's darker, if it needs more light, or it drops if it's quite bright. So it'll go down to 100. So if I'm shooting and it's like well lit and bright, it may go down to even 100 ISO. But if I go underwater where there's not as much light, well then my ISO can jump up to 400 or 800 to get the correct exposure. So I'm always going to get the correct exposure. Okay, so I've got my camera set up. I've got it in I've got it in full manual with automatic ISO. I'm set to RAW, so I get the best quality. I've got my motor drive set to high speed, and it's no reason with the big cards these days why you wouldn't have your motor drive set at super high speed, especially when I'm in manual focus, because the camera doesn't have to focus or anything like that. It can just bang out 10, 12 frames a second or whatever this camera does. Okay, now it's time to put it into the housing. So, got my housing loaded, my trigger works, my GoPro's set on the top, everything's nice and clean. I'm just about to go out and shoot in automatic ISO in manual settings. So I think I chose, what did I choose in the end? The 1/1600th of a second at f8. I might have switched it actually back to 1250th of a second, because yeah, just to make sure of it so I didn't go too high. I'll just check the app to see if we've still got offshore winds, because it's not set up for anything else. I'd rather shoot 50 mil if it's not offshore. Yeah, so it's northwest, which is epic. So it's only 8 to 13k an hour northwest winds, and that will be perfect for the beach break that I've got across the road from me. So gonna go across the road, jump in the water, see what I get. You never really know. You just got to go out and see. The tide's getting lower, so hopefully the waves are getting hollower. We'll see you out there. Okay, we're back in the office after our shoot across the road. It was pretty fun, the sun was good, the conditions stayed clean. The tide actually dropping didn't help. I thought it was going to make the waves a little hollower, didn't turn out to be, and the waves were a little bit better when I checked it earlier this morning. However, we swam around there. I swam around there for about, I don't know, 2 hours or something like that, and got only a few shots, but you know, that's part of the process sometimes. Sometimes you score all your shots in 15 minutes, and sometimes you swim around for 2 hours and get barely anything. So yeah, a few of these shots are okay. None of them will make my portfolio, but rarely does that happen every time you go out and shoot from the water. So what did work very well was the manual settings with automatic ISO. Very easy to set up, really. You just, like I said before we went out, you nominate the shutter speed that would be best to freeze the action or to give you the look that you want. So in this case, I wanted to freeze the action, so I chose 1/1250th a second in the end, and that's anything above 1,000th of a second is going to be enough to freeze the action generally. I do like going to 1/2000th of a second, but I opted to lock in the aperture at f8, which f8 just gives that little bit more depth of field. So I was unsure before I went out whether I was going to get like the close-up inside the barrel shots, in which case you need the focusing point, you know, that focusing distance like close, and then far away action as well. You still want to be in sharp focus at the same time, because we preset manual focus, remember. So by choosing an aperture of f8, I was allowed to get massive focusing distance. So anything from up close to far away was in focus. So this worked out well. I could have chose a 2,000th of a second shutter speed, but then I probably would have got my aperture in at about 5.6 because I didn't want that ISO to swing too high. So yeah, the manual settings with automatic ISO did the trick. It's very easy to set up. Some people get daunted by saying shoot in manual, but really with this safety net of the auto ISO kicking in to get you correct exposure, it's really quite a safe way of shooting. If you understand the shutter speed that you want to be at, and also the aperture, what you're trying to achieve with your aperture, well then you preset that. Those parameters do not move throughout your entire water shoot, and the ISO just kicks in to give you the best exposure. I would use this manual with auto ISO setting more so in the middle of the day. I wouldn't actually recommend it first thing, especially in the evening. I wouldn't recommend it for a sunset shoot, because your settings may increase the ISO to a level where it gets just too much noise. And always practice, like I always say, practice in your backyard first, rather than just do it for the first time inside a water housing while you're out there, because it's so difficult to sort of you know, work something out for the first time while you're swimming around and bobbing around, dodging set waves, or even just swimming in the water. So always practice at home, get good at it, so when you go out there it's second nature to you. So there's a little rundown on manual. With auto ISO, I go a lot deeper into this in my full length courses, which are open for enrolment throughout the year. So feel free to subscribe to our newsletter, links below in the description below, and you can get informed when they come out. Otherwise, please ask any questions, and yeah, if you want any further information, just drop a question into the comments below, or direct message me or email me. I just want to see you guys get better. I want you guys to know what I know, and share the knowledge, share the love. So thanks for listening today, and we'll catch you next week.